Every frame you notice, every story that holds you, every idea that moves culture, there's a system behind it. This is EMPath, hosted by Carolyn DeClue and Beau DeClue, where story meets strategy and creative careers are built with intention. New episodes every Wednesday at 7 a.m. EMPath. Feel the creativity.
This is EMPath, and I'm Carolyn DeClue.
And I'm Beau DeClue. Feel the creativity.
This episode is brought to you by Neon Alchemy. Story is how companies become human. We handle that part. Link in the show notes. New episodes every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Find us wherever you listen.
I want to start with something that doesn't get said enough. Almost every tool you use to make your work easier was built by someone who was sick of doing their own work the hard way.
Which sounds obvious when you say it out loud.
It does. But follow it for a second. The shortcut in your editing software, the batch function, the preset, the macro, the plugin that saves you an hour every time you open it, none of those fell out of the sky. A person made each one, and almost always that person was a working creative who hit the same wall you keep hitting and decided to do something about it.
So the tools people are most afraid of right now were, in a lot of cases, built by people who were afraid of the exact same thing. Tedium, burnout, spending your one creative life pushing pixels around a screen.
That's the part that gets lost in the panic. We talk about automation like it's something happening to creatives, a force from the outside, when historically it's something creatives did for themselves to call back their own time.
And that changes the question we're asking. It stops being, is this technology coming for me? And becomes, what am I going to do with the time it gives back?
Which is a better question and a much harder one.
It's the whole episode. Today, we're getting into what automation actually means for working creatives in 2026, past the fear into the reality. We've got a new invisible move and a career strategy conversation about how you stay valuable when the tools you trained on become available to everyone overnight.
And the deep dive topic is the one I have been personally waiting for since episode 1.
Here we go.
The prepared statement is real. It has survived 2 episodes of you not taking it seriously.
I take it extremely seriously. That's different from wanting to hear all of it.
You're going to hear most of it.
Some of it. We have a clock.
We have a clock?
Let's get into it.
Direction creates momentum, and momentum builds careers. This is EMPath. What's changing? What's staying? What actually matters? This is Industry Pulse.
There's a word that shows up in almost every conversation about the creative industry right now. And depending on who's saying it, it either sounds like a promise or a threat. Automation.
And the temperature in the room changes the second it comes up.
Every time. You say automation to a room of working creatives and you can watch people physically brace. Because for a lot of them, the word has come to mean one thing: the machine that's going to do my job for less money and call it progress.
Which is a real fear, and it deserves a straight answer rather than a wave of the hand.
It's completely real. I'm not here to tell anyone they're imagining it, but I do want to pull the word apart a little, because automation is one of those terms that's gotten so loaded it stopped being useful. It's carrying about 6 different meanings at once, and people are arguing past each other because they're not talking about the same thing.
So let's define it before we judge it. When you say automation in the context of creative work, what are we actually talking about?
At its simplest, automation is just getting a machine to do a repetitive task so a person doesn't have to. That's it. That's the whole concept. And by that definition, creatives have been automating their work for as long as the tools have existed.
Give me the history, because I think people forget how much of this they already live with.
Take photography, for instance. There was a time when developing film was a craft skill in itself. Hours in a dark room, chemicals, precise timing. Then it got automated. First by labs, then by digital labs. And the fear at the time was that real photographers would disappear. That if anyone could get a clean image without the darkroom, the skill was gone.
And what actually happened?
Photography exploded. More people making images than at any point in history. The darkroom skill became rare and specialized, and in some ways more valued. But the craft of photography, the eye, the composition, the moment, that didn't go anywhere. The automation took the tedium. It left the art.
You see the same arc in music. Multi-track recording, drum machines, digital audio workstations. Every one of those was going to be the death of the real musician. And every one of them just expanded who got to make music and what was possible to make.
Editing is the one I lived. When I started, certain things in post took hours of manual, repetitive work. The kind of work where your brain checks out and you're just executing the same move over and over. A lot of that got automated over the years, and I have never once met an editor who missed it.
Because nobody got into editing because they love doing the boring part.
Nobody got into any creative field because they love the boring part. The boring part is the tax you pay to get to the work you actually care about. And automation, at its best, is just somebody finding a way to lower that tax.
So here's the question that actually matters for the people listening. If automation has always been part of the creative work, and it's mostly taken the tedious parts, why does this moment feel different? Why is the fear louder now than it was for the darkroom or the drum machine?
2 reasons, I think. The first is speed. The darkroom getting automated happened over decades. People had time to adapt, to retrain, to find the new shape of the work. What's happening now is happening fast enough that people are watching parts of their job change inside a single year. And that pace is deeply disorienting.
The adjustment window got compressed.
Severely. The second reason is that this generation of tools is reaching higher up the ladder than before. Older automation took the obviously mechanical tasks, the repetitive, rules-based stuff nobody wanted. What's emerging now is starting to touch things that used to feel safely creative. And that's a different psychological experience. It's one thing to automate the darkroom. It's another to automate something that felt like it required taste.
And that's where I'd push the conversation, because there's a distinction underneath all of this that determines whether automation helps you or replaces you. There's a difference between the parts of your work that are labor and the parts that are judgment.
Expand on that.
Labor is execution. It's the doing, resizing the asset, conforming the file, running the same adjustment across 200 versions. It requires attention, but it doesn't really require you. Anyone trained could do it and the output would be the same. Judgment is the part that's actually yours. Knowing which version is right, feeling that a cut lands a beat too late, understanding why one option moves people and the other one falls flat. That's not execution. That's taste built over years.
And the fear conflates the two. People hear automation and they think the whole job is on the table, when usually it's the labor that's exposed, not the judgment.
Usually. And here's the uncomfortable part. If your entire role is labor, if there's no judgment layer in what you do, then yes, that work is truly exposed. Pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone.
That's the honest version of this conversation that people don't always want to have. The answer to automation anxiety isn't, don't worry, you're fine. For some roles, it's, the labor part of this is going to keep shrinking, so build the judgment part now while you have time.
Which is a much more useful thing to tell someone than either, you're doomed, or nothing will change. Because both of those are lies. The truth is in the middle and it's actionable.
And the creatives who internalize that early are the ones who end up fine. Because they stop treating their tools as a thing that makes them valuable. The tool was never the value. The tools change every few years. The judgment is what compounds.
The person who knows why something works can pick up any tool. The person who only knows how to operate one specific tool is one update away from a problem.
And that's been true forever. It's just louder now.
So the better approach, and I mean this for everyone listening who feels that brace reaction when the word comes up, isn't to resist automation or to pretend it's nothing. It's to get really clear about where your judgment lives in your work and to start pouring more of yourself into that part, because that's the part that was always going to be yours to keep.
The machine can have the tedium. It was never the reason you got into this.
It never was.
The industry keeps changing. The patterns underneath it don't. This is EMPath. The tools you use shape the work you create. So what's actually helping, and what's getting in the way? This is Deep Dive, Tools and Workflow.
I have been waiting 3 episodes for this.
I know you have. The whole audience knows you have.
The prepared statement is real. It has survived 2 episodes of you not taking it seriously, and today it gets its moment. We are going to talk about the least glamorous thing in all of creative work. The thing nobody puts in their portfolio, nobody posts about, nobody got into this industry to do. And it is, I will argue, the single biggest difference between creatives who scale and creatives who stay stuck. File naming, organization, metadata, versioning, the boring foundation that everything else sits on top of.
And I came into this segment skeptical. I admit it, because on paper, this sounds like the most tedious possible way to spend a segment.
And by the end, you're going to be on my side, which is going to be a journey for you specifically.
What's that supposed to mean?
Carolyn, may I be honest with the audience for a moment?
Well, this feels a little like a setup.
Your client files are immaculate. Truly, some of the cleanest project structure I've ever worked inside. Tagged, versioned, named perfectly, a thing of beauty.
Thank you, but I hear a but coming.
Your personal files are a crime scene.
Okay.
The last thing you sent me was named 49H3X6_TR copy. It was a folder. Inside the folder was another folder, also named 49H3X6_TR copy. I think it went like 4 levels deep.
In my defense, I knew where everything was.
You did not. You asked me which version was current.
I asked you to confirm which version was current. That's collaboration.
That's a cry for help, is what that is.
Okay, this is fair. This is painfully fair. And I think it's actually the most useful place to start because I'm living proof of something. You can be really good at this. I run clean systems for clients all day and still let your own work descend into total chaos the second nobody's watching.
Which is so common, it's almost the default. People treat organization as a thing you do for other people, a professional courtesy. They don't treat it as something they owe themselves.
And that's the lesson I need to hear, apparently, on a recorded podcast in front of everyone. So go on. How does disorganization steal judgment? Make it land hard enough that I want to fix my own folders.
I'll try to change your life in real time, because every minute you spend hunting for the right file, figuring out which version is current, or rebuilding something you already made and lost, that's judgment time being spent on labor. Your best creative energy burned looking for a folder. The mess doesn't just cost you time, it costs you your good hours.
And it's always the good hours. It's never when I'm tired and useless anyway. It's right when I sit down, ready to actually think.
Because that's when you reach for the file, and the search drains exactly the energy you needed for the work. Disorganization doesn't tax your worst hours, it taxes your best ones.
Okay, I'm in, reluctantly, publicly in. Keep going.
Let's start with naming, because it's the foundation of the foundation. Here's the thing nobody tells you when you start. The way you name a file is a message to your future self, and most people send their future self into a burning building.
The final problem.
The final problem. Everyone knows it. You've got final, then final_version 2, then final_real, then final use this one, then final use this one actual. And 6 months later, you open that folder and you have no idea which one is the actual final, and neither does anyone else. And the answer is now lost to history.
Okay, so what's the fix?
Naming that carries information instead of emotion. Final is an emotion. It's hope. It means nothing. A good file name tells you what the thing is, what stage it's at, and when it's from, and a format that sorts correctly on its own. Project, asset, version, date, and a consistent order every time. The boring version is the one that saves you. You open the folder a year later, and the files line themselves up in the right order and tell you their own story.
In date specifically, there's a right way to write a date in a file name, isn't there?
There is, and I love that you knew to ask. Year, then month, then day. Big unit to small, because then your files sort chronologically on their own, automatically, forever. The way most people write dates, month, day, year, sorts into nonsense. This one tiny choice made consistently means your computer organizes time for you instead of against you.
This is the most alive I've ever seen you.
This is my Carnegie Hall. Let's talk about metadata, because this is where it goes from helpful to seriously powerful.
Define it for people first.
Metadata is data about your data. It's the information attached to a file that isn't the file itself. Tags, keywords, descriptions, ratings, who shot it, where, when, what it's for, and here's why it matters. Naming organizes things in a folder. Metadata lets you find things across everything you've ever made without remembering where you put them.
So instead of remembering the folder, you search the quality.
Exactly. Tag a clip as sunset, slow, aerial, warm, and 3 years later, when you need exactly that feeling, it surfaces instantly. You stop relying on your memory of where things live and start relying on a system that knows what things are. For anyone building a real body of work over years, that's the difference between an archive you can use and a graveyard you're afraid to open.
And this connects to something we've talked about across the whole show. A body of work isn't only the finished pieces, it's everything you've made along the way. And this connects to something we've talked about across the whole show. A body of work isn't only the finished pieces, it's everything you've made along the way. Metadata is what keeps this accessible to you.
That's the part people miss. Your old work is a resource, but only if you can find it. Let's get into versioning, because this is where teams live or die.
Versioning means how you track changes over time.
how you track changes, and how you make sure the right version is the one that ships. Solo, bad versioning costs you a headache. On a team, bad versioning costs you the whole project. 2 people editing 2 different copies of the same file, both convinced theirs is current, and the work silently splits into 2 realities that have to get painfully merged back together. Or worse, somebody overwrites the good version with an old one and there's no way back.
And the fix is a single source of truth?
One source of truth, one place where the current version lives, that everyone agrees is the current version. Whether that's a proper versioning tool or just a disciplined shared structure, the principle is the same. There is one real version. Everything else is clearly marked as not the real one. The clarity is the whole point.
Which brings up collaboration and handoff, because none of this is only about you.
This is the part I care about most, because here's the truth from years on sets and in edit bays. The quality of handoff tells you everything about a professional. When I get a project from someone and it's clean, files named so I understand them instantly, folders that make sense, the current version obvious, notes where I need them, I know I'm working with a pro before I've seen a single frame of their actual work.
The organization is a portfolio piece in itself.
It truly is, and the reverse is brutal. When someone hands me a mess, mystery file names, no structure, 3 versions, and no clue which is live, it doesn't matter how talented they are. I'm now spending my first 2 hours just figuring out what they handed me, and I will think twice before working with them again. The work might be brilliant, the handoff told me they'd be expensive to work with.
Last week he was thinking about quitting the podcast over a project we were working on together. So that's a real career point, hiding inside a boring sounding topic. Your organization is part of your reputation. People are quietly judging it and deciding whether you're easy to work with.
Quietly and constantly. Nobody compliments good organization. They just keep hiring you, and they're not always sure why. And nobody tells you your organization costs you the next job. They just don't call.
So let me pull this back to the spine of the whole episode because I really came around. This entire layer, naming, metadata, versioning, clean handoffs, this is the layer where you systemize so your judgment stays free. You make the boring part automatic and reliable on purpose so that when you sit down to do the work that actually requires you, all of your attention is available for it.
That's the whole thing. You're not being tidy for the sake of tidy. You're protecting your creative energy from being nibbled to death by 1,000 tiny searches. The discipline at the bottom is what buys the freedom at the top.
Automate the boring so you can protect the brilliant.
And name your files like someone you respect is going to open them. Because someone is. It's you in a year on a deadline.
That's the statement.
That's the statement. The appendix will have to wait for another episode.
I'm going home to fix my folders.
That's the only review I wanted.
Most podcasts about creativity talk about the dream. EMPath talks about the work, the tools, the workflows, the career decisions nobody explains out loud, the patterns underneath the industry that separate the people who last from the ones who burn out trying. Hosted by Carolyn DeClue and Beau DeClue every Wednesday at 7 a.m. If you're already in the creative industry or building your way in, this show is made for you. EMPath, feel the creativity.
Quick one. The discipline nobody sees is what makes the work everybody notices possible.
Coming up, the invisible move, the principle a magician would recognize instantly, hiding inside almost everything you watch, read, and click.
Stay with us.
You saw it, you felt it, but you didn't notice it. This is the invisible move.
I'm going to pull from the other thing I do for this one. Because alongside everything in film, I do magic. And magic is built almost entirely on a single principle that turns out to run underneath an enormous amount of creative work. Today's invisible move is misdirection.
And I want to hear the magician's definition specifically, because I think most people misunderstand what misdirection actually is.
They do. Most people think misdirection means distraction. Look over there while I do the secret thing over here. And that's the crude version. Real misdirection is more elegant than that. It's not about pulling attention away from something. It's about making the audience want to look exactly where you've decided they should look and feel like it was their idea.
So it's not hiding, it's directing desire.
That's exactly it. And there's a magician I love on this, Tommy Wonder, one of the greats, who argued the word misdirection is actually wrong. Nothing is being misdirected. You're not sending attention to a false place. You're directing it to precisely the right place. He just called it direction. Drop the miss, because done well, there's nothing deceptive about where the eye is going. The eye is going exactly where it should. The work just happens to live somewhere else.
That's a better word for it. Misdirection sounds like a trick. Direction sounds like a craft.
That was his whole point. A great magician doesn't force your attention or fool it. They make the place they want you looking the most interesting place in the room. You go there willingly, happily, and the real work happens in the space you've chosen freely to ignore.
Which is a fundamentally different principle than anything we've talked about. Hierarchy was about guiding the eye to what matters most. This is almost the opposite. It's deliberately sending attention to one place so something else can operate unnoticed.
Right. Hierarchy says, look here, this is important. Direction, in this sense, says, look here so you don't notice that. It's the management of attention in service of an effect the audience isn't supposed to see coming.
And once you frame it that way, it's everywhere. Let me take it out of magic because this runs through almost every creative field. Most people just never had a word for it.
Go.
Film is the obvious one, and it's not just sleight of hand. Every plot twist that ever got you is misdirection. The filmmaker spends the whole movie sending your attention to the wrong suspect, the wrong threat, the wrong assumption, so the real reveal lands. And on rewatch, you see it was all sitting right there in plain sight. You weren't tricked by hidden information, you were guided to look past visible information.
The best twists are the ones where nothing was hidden. You just weren't looking at it.
In design, misdirection is how interfaces guide you. The button they want you to press is bright and obvious, and your eye goes straight to it. The thing they'd rather you not dwell on, the cancel option, the fine print, the unsubscribe, is quiet, low contrast, easy to glide past. Designers control your attention budget. The ethical ones use it to make things clear. The less ethical ones use it to make you miss things.
That's the dark version. Direction has an ethics to it. Same principle, very different intent.
It really does, and writing misdirection is the whole engine of mystery and suspense. A skilled author plants the real clues in a throwaway sentence and then immediately hands you something louder and more dramatic to chase. The clue was right there. You ran past it because the writer gave you somewhere more exciting to run. In advertising, it's often the entire structure of the spot. They get you laughing, get you emotional, get you absorbed in a little story, and the product message slides in while your guard is down. Your attention was on the story. The persuasion happened in your peripheral vision.
And in stage performance, live events, the kind of arena production work I've done, this is how you cover the things that have to happen but can't be seen. The big light cue, the loud moment, the thing that pulls every eye to center stage. That exists partly for impact and partly so that, off in the dark, a whole set change happens that the audience never registers.
The spectacle is real and it's also doing a job.
The spectacle is always doing a job. That's the magician's secret that applies to all of it. The thing the audience is enjoying and the thing the work is actually accomplishing are often two different things happening at the same time.
And here's where it connects to this episode, because it should make people slightly uneasy in a useful way. This is a tool. Tools are neutral. The exact same principle that lets a magician create wonder lets a dark pattern interface steal your afternoon. What separates them is entirely intent.
Which is the most human part of the whole thing. A machine can execute direction. It can A/B test its way into the exact layout that moves your eye where it wants. But deciding what to use that power for, wonder or exploitation, delight or manipulation, that's not a technical question. That's a values question, and that stays with us.
So this one comes with a small assignment. The next time a piece of work really gets you, a twist you didn't see, an ad that landed before you noticed it was an ad, an interface that walked you somewhere, go back and find the direction. Find where your attention was sent and ask what was happening in the place you weren't looking.
Once you can see it, you can't unsee it. And you start to choose, in your own work, how you want to use it.
Where you send the eye and what you do in the space it leaves behind.
That's the invisible move.
Attention isn't random, it's directed. That was the invisible move, only on EMPath.
Quick check. How many tools in your workflow are actually helping you finish the work? And how many are quietly slowing it down?
All right, let's keep going.
Better tools don't build better work. Better decisions do. This is EMPath. Creative work doesn't build careers. Direction does. This is career strategy.
I want to give people something solid to actually do with everything we've talked about today. We've spent the episode on what automation is and how to think about it. Now I want to get specific about the career move inside it. And it comes down to one decision. In an automating field, you can be the person who does the task, or you can be the person who runs the system that does the task. Those are two completely different career paths, and the gap between them is widening fast.
And almost everyone starts as the person doing the task. That's not a criticism. That's just where you enter. You get hired to execute.
Right, and there's nothing wrong with starting there. Everyone does. The danger is staying there without noticing the ground moving underneath you. Because the person whose entire value is executing a repeatable task is standing exactly where automation lands first. That's not a prediction because it's already happening.
So the play is to climb a layer, from doing the thing to directing the thing that does the thing.
That's the whole strategy. And I want to break down what that actually looks like because move up a layer is easy to say and vague to act on. There are 4 real roles that open up above the task, and every one of them is more durable than execution.
Walk through them.
The first is the designer of the system. Automation doesn't design itself. Somebody has to decide what the workflow should be, what gets automated, in what order, with what logic to produce what result. That's a creative and strategic act, and it requires understanding the work deeply enough to know what should happen, which is different from knowing how to do each step by hand.
And that's the part people underestimate. You can't design a good system for work you don't understand. The years you spent doing the task by hand aren't wasted when the task gets automated. They're the exact thing that qualifies you to design the automation.
That's the part I want people to hear. Your hands-on experience doesn't become worthless when the hands-on part gets automated. It converts into the qualification for a higher role. You know where the bodies are buried. You know what goes wrong, what the edge cases are, what good actually looks like. The person who's never done the work by hand can design a system that handles reality.
And the second role?
The director of the output, the judgment layer. The system produces. Somebody has to decide if what it produces is any good. And that's not a rubber stamp. That's the most important job in an automated pipeline because the automation will confidently produce something wrong and have no idea it's wrong.
This is the one from my world. You can automate a huge amount of production. You cannot automate the person who looks at the result and goes, no, that's not right. The text is technically correct and it still feels dead. Fix it. The machine doesn't have that reaction. It thinks it nailed it.
And that, no, it's not right, is judgment, the thing we've come back to all episode. In an automated workflow, the quality bar is entirely human. The system produces to the level it produces. A person decides whether that level is acceptable and pushes it higher. Become that person and you're not competing with automation. You're the reason its output is usable at all.
Third?
The one who handles what the system can't. Every automated workflow has edges. The unusual request, the exception, the thing the pipeline wasn't built for. And those edges are where a lot of the actual value lives because they're the parts that resist being systemized. The creative who can step in exactly when the automation hits its limit and handle the thing it can't becomes essential precisely because the routine stuff got automated.
The automation handles the 90%. You become the person who owns the 10% that's too weird or too important to automate. And that 10% is usually the part that actually matters.
It's usually the part with the highest stakes. The routine got cheap, the exceptions got more valuable, and the person who owns the exceptions is in a strong position.
And the fourth?
The one who connects the system to the human goal. Automation is good at executing toward a target. It's terrible at deciding what the target should be or noticing when the target itself is wrong. Someone has to sit between the client's actual need and the machine's output and make sure they line up. Translating a fuzzy human goal into something the system can execute and then sanity checking that what came out actually serves the original need, that's a strategy and it doesn't automate.
So none of the 4 is operate the tool. They're all about understanding judgment and direction.
That's the pattern. Every durable role above the task is some flavor of judgment applied to a system, which means the career move is to deliberately build the judgment, not just the execution speed. And here's how you actually start doing that practically, even if you're entry level and currently are the person doing the task.
This is what people need because most of the audience is doing the task right now and wondering how you climb when that's your whole job.
3 moves. First, when you do a repetitive task, pay attention to the system around it instead of zoning out. Notice what's inefficient. Notice what breaks. Notice what you'd change. That awareness is the seed of system design, and you build it for free while doing the work you already do. Second, start developing your no. Practice articulating why something is good or bad, not just feeling it. The director of output role is built on being able to say precisely what's wrong and how to fix it. That's a muscle. Train it on every piece of work you touch, including your own.
And get comfortable being the person who says the output isn't good enough yet. That's uncomfortable early in a career. It's also exactly the skill that gets you promoted out of the task.
Third, volunteer for the edges. The weird request, the thing nobody's done before, the problem the standard process doesn't cover. Everyone else avoids those because they're hard and uncertain. Those are the exact reps that make you the person who can handle what systems can't. Run towards the parts that don't fit the template.
So the whole thing flips. The stuff that feels risky and inconvenient now, the exceptions, the judgment calls, the system problems, that's the actual career.
That's the career. The task you're doing today is the floor, not the ceiling. Automation is going to keep rising up from the bottom, taking the routine, the repeatable, the executable. The way you stay ahead of it isn't running faster on the same level. It's climbing, becoming the one who designs the system, judges the output, owns the exceptions, and connects it all to what the work is actually for.
Don't be the part of the process that gets automated. Be the reason the process is any good.
That's the whole episode in a sentence.
The work matters, but direction changes everything. This is EMPath. Behind the work, there are real people building it. This is Listener Spotlight.
Our guest today built a company around a question that sounds simple until you actually try to answer it. What would you do with most of your production time back? Dustin Power is the founder and director of Automistic, a digital media automation company working with live touring shows around the world. He's got a background with Monster Jam, Disney on Ice, and Jurassic World Live Tour. So if you've been in an arena in the last few years watching a high production event, there's a real chance he had something to do with what you saw on screen. He's also a Full Sail University graduate who went from film and production into building the kind of infrastructure that creative teams either love immediately or have complicated feelings about until they actually use it. We get into automation, creative identity, what the industry gets wrong about both, and what it actually looks like to build a company sitting right on the line between technology and craft. This conversation ran long, in the best way, so we split it. You're getting part one today. Dustin, welcome to EMPath.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get into it.
Well, first of all, I'm just going to point out again that Full Sail University, it seems like a small world.
You know, it's funny, as I actually I grew up within 2 hours of Full Sail, and I lived there my whole life, and I met a few people in that general area. But after moving to Amsterdam, I didn't think I would ever meet another Full Sail alumni. And, lo and behold, I go to take my dog out, and there's 2 Full Sail alumni that just happen to be taking theirs out as well.
Automistic has a very specific tagline. You create, we automate. Where did that philosophy come from, and at what point did you realize there was a real business in it?
Yeah, so the idea came to me because I know that a lot of people in the creative world are afraid of automation and, AI tools and new technologies as they're coming up. Because, one of my big worries was I didn't want to make a tool that made people lose their jobs. I wanted to make a tool that made people more efficient at doing their jobs so they don't have to do busy work and they don't have to, hit copy and paste all day. I really wanted to give creative people their time and their freedom back to actually create things versus just being a cog in a machine hitting copy, paste, making sure the logo is the right size, make sure the text is the right size. I experienced that for many years in a creative studio, and it was, honestly, it drained the soul out of me. I couldn't stand it after, I was there for way too long, but, it was just a comfort job. But, copy, paste. And that's really what I was doing for about like 60% of my job. And the other 40% was actually creating. So what I envisioned with Automistic is giving these companies their time back so they can actually work on really great creative assets, and then let our company take care of all the localization for the text and logos and audio.
What does the word mystic mean in the context of what you do?
Yeah.
Because automation and mysticism feel like they're on opposite ends of the spectrum.
The philosophy around where mystic comes from is the old interpreters of the stars, the old mystics that, saw things that other people do not. And really what that kind of boils down to in like modern day terminology is being able to utilize AI. It is a skill, and, not everybody can use AI, but only people that are really in that world and trained to know how to utilize it can actually get productive results. What we do is we utilize AI to help us with production times, with accuracy, with quality control. So using our system, there's actually not any kind of AI involved in the actual content creation process, but in the back end of building skeletons for automation workflows, we utilize AI to get a production ready in a matter of weeks.
You used to work for Feld Entertainment. There was a specific workflow that you followed when you were there. Why were you determined to find a better way?
So when I started there, I was a assistant video editor. That was my second job out of college. And my job was basically to open a Photoshop document, change the venue and date, and shrink down the text so it fit within this box, and then export that, send that to the video editor. And I did that for probably about a year and a half of just changing text and sending to the video editor. And that video editor would take that text, put it into the Premiere Pro, send it off to the sound mixing, get it back, do the exporting, send it to the project manager. And if there's any issues, it would go back to the video editor, go back to the sound mixer, and then go back to me as well. where I'd need to go back and, re-export another image of the venue and date if there's some kind of error. And it was just such a horrible process of back and forth and hurry up and wait. And, everybody's constantly waiting on something or, is like has a huge pile of like 30 jobs they need to get done in a day. And it was super inefficient. So, as I stayed with the company for longer, I, got a few promotions and I was able to make the systems, roughly, I believe it was like 5 times faster production time on average once I kind of got my hands and everything, got control of the workflow. And that was great. But, I was thinking, there's got to be a better way to do that because it would still take, 2 to 3 days to get a TV commercial ready. If you do the sound mixing and you do the graphics and, the video editing, if it needs any shots swapped or anything, it's still a long process. I'm like, there's got to be a way to get this done in a matter of minutes versus days and utilizing one simple input and receiving one simple output.
Monster Jam, Disney on Ice, Jurassic World Live Tour, and these are all large-scale live entertainment brands. Is that a deliberate niche that you chose?
That is something the universe just kind of threw my way. That's just the world I landed in. And
Okay.
I chose to just, keep that hand and keep playing it. And, it served me pretty well. I love Monster Jam. That was like my bread and butter when I was a kid. I love seeing the trucks doing flips and doing all that. And I never imagined I'd actually be working with them. And, just an amazing experience just to be able to get behind the scenes there and actually be a part of that. It just so happened to be that the headquarters was 15 minutes away from my parents' house too. So whenever I first got the job, I moved back in with them and I was able to go into the headquarters and, be there within like a, 5-minute drive. So it is, the universe did kind of nudge me in the direction of that for some reason. And I just chose to keep down that path and it's been great. And obviously I other side passions and projects and stuff, but that's really been my main source of income since I left college.
How about you walk us through what a project actually looks like from the moment a client comes to you to the moment they have the final files?
Basically, it usually starts off with a quick call where maybe 10 to 15 minutes where they either want to see what our systems are capable of doing, or they want to show me what they have and if it's possible for us to kind of take some of that workload off their plate. For the instance of wanting to see a demo, what we'll do is we'll just go into our demo account. We'll fill out a job form where we select a venue and a date and a sponsor logo and whatever custom text they want on the end page. And we'll let them fill that all out and they'll send it over. And I'll share my screen so they can see the whole automation pipeline running where it's grabbing the correct templates, doing the text, doing the sponsor logos, and dragging the audio in there too. We use a modular audio system. So you have like your venue and your date and, your second date, and it kind of mushes it together and it shrinks it all into the proper spacing that you have on your timeline. And it does pitch correction and everything. So usually, people are pretty impressed with that, where they get a full finalized TV spot within, 5 minutes. It's
cool.
like you're watching a video editor working fast forward, and you see all these tabs opening up and all the text changing and all the everything going together. So a part of the process too is you get a proof file, which is basically one timeline you can scroll through, so you can see all your social media videos and images, all your TV spots, all your venue boards, whatever it might be. You can look at it all on one timeline and scrub through it. But we choose not to use AI in our workflow as well, like directly involved in the actual media creation process, is because it does hallucinate. So, if you want to have it make a video, you don't want it to like hallucinate like a wrong character in the date or something like that, or the promotion code, because that could really cause issues. And that's something that's really easy to like not catch. So we use AI to help build the skeleton of our system, and we stress test it to make sure all variables come out exactly as you input them. It's great to be able to utilize AI, but also you have to know its limitations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The work tells a story. So do the people behind it. This is EMPath. Step back, look again. What changes when the perspective shifts? This is Perspective Reset.
There's a moment in that conversation I haven't been able to stop thinking about. Dustin was describing the job he had before any of this, the one where most of his days were spent copy, paste, resize, repeat. He didn't describe it as boring or inefficient or a waste of time. He said it drained the soul out of him.
That phrase landed differently than I expected when he said it, because we'd been talking about automation, systems, technology, and then suddenly we were talking about the soul.
And I think that's a big part of the conversation that gets missed. We frame automation as a technology story. It's an efficiency story, a job story. But underneath it, for the person actually living it, it's something much more human. It's about whether your days are spent on the part of the work that's alive or the part that slowly empties you out.
He didn't build the company to make creatives faster. Not really. He built it because he knew what that hollow feeling does to a person, and he didn't want anyone else stuck in it.
That's what I want to leave people with, because the entire automation conversation is usually about time. How much time you save, how much faster you get. And time matters, but time is not actually the point. What you do with the time is the point.
And that's the harder question. It's easy to want your time back. It's harder to know what it's for.
It really is, because here's the trap. You can automate the soul-draining busy work out of your week, get all those hours back, and then fill them with different busy work. New tedium, a fresh pile of copy-paste, and a slightly nicer outfit. The machine gave you the hours, it can't tell you what they're for. Only you can answer that.
So the work isn't just building the system. It's deciding what the system is in service of.
Which brings it home for everyone listening. We spent the whole episode on the line between labor and judgment. The labor is the part a machine can take. The judgment is the part that stays yours. But there's something underneath even that. There's the question of what you actually want to spend your one creative life doing. So here's what I'd leave you with. Think about your own week. Really think about it. How much of it drains the soul out of you the way Dustin described, and how much of it is the work that's actually alive? The part you do even if no one was paying you.
And if the ratio is bad, and for a lot of people it is, automation isn't the threat in that picture. It might be the way out.
The tools aren't here to take the work that matters. The work that matters was never the part you wanted to get rid of. The tools are here at their best to clear away everything that was standing between you and it. The question Dustin's whole company is built on isn't really about automation at all. It's about your time and your soul and what you're going to do with both.
Get the empty work out of the way, and then do the thing you came here to do.
That's the whole point.
Clarity changes direction. This is EMPath.
That's episode 3. Here's where we went today. We pulled the word automation apart and looked at what it actually means for working creatives, past the fear, into the difference between the labor a machine can take and the judgment that stays yours. We finally had the conversation I've been promising since episode 1 about the unglamorous foundation underneath all good creative work. Naming, metadata, versioning, clean handoffs, the boring discipline that buys you your freedom.
And expose my personal files to a live audience in the process.
A necessary sacrifice. The work was important.
Okay. We also got into Misdirection as this episode's invisible move, where you send the eye and what happens in the space you leave behind, and in career strategy, the play that actually matters in an automating field. Don't be the part of the process that gets automated. Be the reason the process is any good.
And then we sat down with Dustin Power, founder and director of AutoMystic, a creative who went and built the exact kind of thing a lot of creatives are nervous about, and had real, honest reasons for doing it.
That conversation stayed with me, especially the human part of it, which we got into during the perspective reset. The tools were never here to take the work that matters. At their best, they cleared a way to do it.
And here's the good news. That conversation isn't over. Dustin and I covered so much ground that we split it in 2. Next week is part 2, where we get into the line between what a machine should handle and what has to stay human, what people actually do with the time they get back, and a tool he swears is underrated that almost nobody's talking about.
So if today raised questions for you, hold on to them. There's a good chance next week answers them.
If this episode did something for you, pass it to someone who needs it. Someone staring down automation in their own field and not sure what it means for them. That's how this show finds the people it's for. One person handing it to another.
And we want to hear from you. What part of your week drains the soul out of you? And what would you do with the time if you got it back? Tell us on X at Follow EMPath or on Facebook at Entertainment Media Path Podcast. We're reading everything.
New episodes every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Find us on any podcast platform. Search EMPath Podcast.
And if you're a brand looking to reach an audience of creatives actively investing in their careers and their craft, sponsorship details are in the show notes. Or reach us directly at info@neonalchemy.nl.
The appendix on file naming is still unwritten, by the way. I want that one on record.
Noted. Maybe season 2, or 3, or 4.
Maybe season 2.
This episode was brought to you by Neon Alchemy. Story is how companies become human. We handle that part. EMPath.
Feel the creativity.
EMPath is a partner podcast of Neon Alchemy BV. Story is how companies become human. We handle that part.